Hi, this is Bernie Thompson from Pluggable Technologies. We're here with our third office hours, working from home normally. And actually, I came into work, which is really rare for me, sitting in my office. So that's kind of a weird experience. And I've got Katie, our director of marketing, with us. And Katie is way over on the East Coast.
Yes, it's 8 o'clock here right now. I'm trying to get as much light in here as possible so you can see me, but it's dark outside.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk about kind of technology and work from home, and also take any questions in the comments as we have other weeks, to try to give you some kind of deeper insight into kind of what's possible with peripherals that connect with your laptop, and also some of the technology behind it too. Actually, before I got into that, I wanted to, because I'm interested in people's kind of COVID stories. And I think the story of kind of what happened with you, Katie, was really interesting. We Pluggable Technologies, we're right here in Redmond, Washington, very near to Microsoft, which is where I used to work and manage the USB team there, close to Amazon, and also close to the ground zero of the original kind of COVID infection in the US, which was at a nursing home, really just about 3 miles away from where I'm sitting right now at Pluggable Technologies. So here we are. We're a company that deals with physical goods, and we sell like 500,000 products a year around the world. And COVID hits right next to us. It had already been hitting our supply chain, which out of Asia. So we already had a little bit of supply disruption. And then, Katie had a personal trip to the East Coast, which I don't know if we really didn't know at that time what was going to happen. In fact, New York didn't know, because when you got to New York, do you remember the date and what was happening on the streets at that time?
Oh man, I don't know exact date. I want to say it was end of February probably. And when I got here, I was under the assumption that I was coming here for a week and then I was coming back home over to Washington, and all restaurants were open. People were out on the streets. Airport was full. Flight was a little empty, but nothing too crazy. And then as soon as I got here, I would say within a couple days, Governor Jay Inslee of Washington announced that we were going into lockdown. But over here, it was a totally different story. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to extend my trip over here and stay a little longer, because Washington was in lockdown. And then a couple weeks later, New York was in lockdown too. And so I've been living out of my 1 week packed suitcase for the past 2 months now. And it's been very interesting making the shift. Like right now, my desk is a dining room table. I didn't come here with the intention to work full time. So it's been quite the transformation for me in a couple weeks when it comes to working.
Yeah, and you had gotten a little bit of a kind of a preview of what was coming, but none of us thought it was going to come here. I actually did an interview, which is really, I mean, I've never done anything like this, on CNBC in mid-February about the impact of the supply chain disruption in China on US companies. And I kind of, when I was doing that interview, I was like, people aren't taking this seriously enough. But I was only thinking about it from the perspective of supply chain disruption. I didn't think it would come here. And then, within a month, the everything crazy that was happening in China, in some ways, was playing out here too. And and so at the same time, our products enable productivity at home. And so one of the interesting things that happened to us is kind of right after our supply was disrupted, our demand went up, because our products help people. Like Katie, you were describing sitting there at your dining room table. It would be nice to have an extra monitor and not be trapped on this, little laptop screen. And that, today with a typical laptop that's probably thin and light and only has a USB-C port, you need something, a dock or an adapter or something to, connect that monitor. Or like for me, I need a mouse. I try to work on a trackpad and it just kills me. So I need that connectivity. And so actually so that's true. And we actually saw our sales go way up in March. So really interesting. And one of the so kind of getting into a technology related thing, one of the things that is interesting that's been going on in the industry actually for several years is this kind of all-out battle between two technologies for connecting displays. One is HDMI and one is DisplayPort. HDMI is a little bit better known. You know, chances are your TV at home uses HDMI. That may be the only connection, in fact, your TV has, any of the consumer gear. But actually, so what happened was there was an industry body around HDMI, and they had kind of high licensing fees. So every single HDMI port you would have to pay, I don't know what it was, it was confidential, like $1 or $2. And so that got the computer industry kind of up in arms. And you had a few major players like Apple and Dell go off and create this thing called DisplayPort, which has been in this race with HDMI ever since. Its original kind of purpose for existence in a way was to try to not have to pay this royalty for every port. Of course, they also tried to make it a better technology too, but really they're pretty equivalent technologies. And so now one of the things that you often have to kind of adapt is something that only has a DisplayPort output. How do you connect on a HDMI display?
This like long battle of thinking which one's going to prevail, HDMI versus DisplayPort, and it can get really confusing because they look similar. Like I remember I just bought a TV not that long ago, and I had my face in the back of the TV trying to read the little tiny HDMI or DisplayPort, and then I'm looking for that extra little slant.
Yeah.
It can get confusing really quickly, and there are some major differences between them.
Yeah, and so I want to explain a couple of those differences, or at least talk through them, because they do come up quite often. So sorry for all the crinkles. I've got two pluggable products with me. So one is our active DisplayPort to HDMI adapter, and one of the things you'll notice right off is the thing that Katie was talking about is a DisplayPort on this side. On this side, has this kind of one-sided notch. So it's square, except for over here, there's kind of like an angle on that one side. Whereas HDMI, and this is the kind of a female port to plug a cable in, it is symmetric. There's the same sort of notch on both sides. What's interesting about it is actually the signaling, that's happening over these is really actually quite different. I mean, in a way, it's the same. Their packets are going at an extremely high throughput over a copper cable, but the details of how those packets are structured are very different between HDMI and DisplayPort. And so if you have a situation where, let's say you have a Thunderbolt dock, it's very common with a Thunderbolt dock to only have DisplayPort out. And the reason why is because DisplayPort, again, kind of endorsed by the computer industry and Intel and everything, and Apple, it's actually most often DisplayPort that's kind of running on the wire, kind of natively in computer setups. And then it's kind of the last hop where you finally convert that DisplayPort to HDMI in order to connect the TV or HDMI monitors, which are still super common. So it gets really confusing though, because DisplayPort immediately hit this problem where, oh man, everybody wants to connect HDMI displays. So what they did was they introduced a new version of the DisplayPort specification, and boy, it's got a geeky name. It's DisplayPort Plus. And that's so funny to me as a programmer, because I'm a programmer. And so the plus comes from basically C, the computer programming language C, and it's to increment something. It's to add one to it. So it's literally the geeks saying, oh, what are we going to name this thing? Oh, we'll name it DisplayPort Plus because it's the next one. Oh, man. So already you got confusing naming. But what they did with DisplayPort Plus is they said, okay, we're going to have DisplayPort ports coming out of a laptop or a dock. And if we're going to define a specification where that chip that is providing that output can actually output both DisplayPort and HDMI signaling at the same time, kind of ready to go, so that even with an inexpensive adapter that doesn't have any chips in it, you'll be able to plug into the DisplayPort and get HDMI out of that. And so basically DisplayPort Plus, when a system supports that, enables you to have inexpensive, what's called passive DisplayPort to HDMI adapters, and there's no chip inside here. It's actually just taking wires from the DisplayPort port that have HDMI signaling on them and just routing those wires out the HDMI pins. But this adapter will only work if your DisplayPort supports DisplayPort Plus. Oh my gosh, so confusing for consumers. So alternatively, there's what's called active adapters. Active adapters take the DisplayPort signal, and they do have a chip inside here, and they do that last conversion from that DisplayPort packet structure and all this kind of signaling that's totally different than HDMI, and they take that in and then do HDMI out. And these adapters, active adapters, will work on any DisplayPort, whether it's DisplayPort Plus or the kind of basic DisplayPort that doesn't have that that HDMI compatibility feature. Wow, very confusing. So when you ran across this the first time, Katie, were you confused by this active, passive, plus, not plus thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really confusing, and it's interesting. Not all DisplayPort ports have the DisplayPort Plus marking on them, and they still can be DisplayPort Plus. And I mean, as a consumer, especially when buying adapters, I'm just looking for what's a good price. And when you do that, you're buying the passive adapters, which you're kind of leaving yourself open there. If you don't have DisplayPort Plus, it's not going to work.
Yes.
And so when you have the DP versus DP++, and then you add passive versus active on top of it, it gets very confusing very quickly. And something I've always done to help me kind of remember is DisplayPort Plus is passive. It's just so much easier, like with having that PPP acronym. Otherwise, I get lost in a second. But it's very interesting. I didn't realize that they could have little tiny adapters can have these chipsets in there that can make kind of a world of difference of what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, and the price difference between these, so you'll find these passive adapters, maybe like kind of eBay pricing, like as low as maybe $5, and definitely even kind of Amazon pricing below $10. These active adapters kind of start above that price point, usually 15 and up. And so the thing is, if you buy an active adapter, you're set. It's going to work with everything. Whereas if you buy that $5 to $10 passive adapter, you've got to be careful what you plug it into. And in fact, most of the DisplayPort ports that you'll find today, unfortunately, do not support DisplayPort Plus. And a real common example being now, most Thunderbolt hardware does not support DisplayPort Plus. There's a couple different reasons for that. I mean, mostly that DisplayPort Plus is a little bit of a backward-looking spec, and we're headed with pluggable products in the direction of because the market is so split between DisplayPort and HDMI, it's kind of not quite 50-50, but maybe 70-30, with HDMI being the bottom 70% of the market and DisplayPort being the upper 30%. We can't afford to ignore 30% of the market. And also, if people get confused, because it's so easy to look at these two ports and go, okay, well, they're the same. This is HDMI, right? No, this is DisplayPort. So basically, we want to design products. Our whole goal with Pluggable is better products, better information, better support. And a lot of the better products part of it is just kind of making it impossible to make a mistake. So a lot of our newer products have both HDMI or DisplayPort ports on our dock or on our adapter, so that either one will work. And that just kind of on the dock or adapter side gets rid of the confusion entirely, and you don't need to even buy an adapter like ours. So we'll put some information, in the video links on that. But basically, if you want to buy the DisplayPort to HDMI adapter, that you don't need to think about. So I'll just type this in here right now, Pluggable.com products, DP HDMI, and I think I got that right. And that is the active adapter where you don't need to think about it. It will just work on any DisplayPort. We actually just had a product launch 2 weeks ago where this was really relevant to it. Our new Thunderbolt TBT3 UDC1. Do you want to talk about that product, Katie, and then maybe tie that into the DisplayPort and HDMI aspect?
Yeah, the HDMI and DisplayPort aspect's really big here. So we launched a docking station that's Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C capable, and it provides 60 watts of charging. I think it has 12 ports on it. It's kind of like your Thunderbolt USB-C powerhouse dock. But what's interesting is it's a dual DisplayPort output. So that means that you have to have DisplayPort monitors, or you have to be using the correct adapter to get it to HDMI, which makes it tricky. So it's cool because I think this is actually our first dock that is dual DisplayPort outputs, which is really high video capabilities. But if you are using, which most monitors do, kind of that HDMI output, you have to be really careful about kind of the adapters that you're using.
Yeah, and it unfortunately kind of added in a new element. Let me describe that element. So that capability that Katie talked about, where this dock will work in any Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C system, that's a capability of Intel's new Titan Ridge Thunderbolt 3 chipset. Great capability, kind of solves one of the points of confusion with Thunderbolt 3, which is Thunderbolt 3 and USB-C use the same connector, but up until Titan Ridge, if you connected a Thunderbolt 3 product into a laptop that only supported USB-C and didn't support Thunderbolt 3, nothing would happen. It couldn't work. And so Titan Ridge is Intel's attempt to kind of bridge that gap. So the Titan Ridge chipset has the capability to provide some functionality, kind of a slightly lower level of functionality, not too much lower, and we'll talk about an aspect of that. But on USB-C, so it works in either Thunderbolt 3 or USB-C. But there's a problem. The Titan Ridge chipset has some compatibility issues with the DisplayPort output on it, has some compatibility issues with some existing chipsets, active chipsets in the market. And so a lot of the existing active DP to HDMI adapters actually don't work with any Titan Ridge product. So we're actually going to be coming to market with a new, with refreshing our DisplayPort to HDMI adapter line and some new products that use some newer chipsets that don't have some of these problems. So it's a really tricky situation right now, and it's why kind of currently, if you're going to buy any of the Titan Ridge docks and like our any of the Titan Ridge docks that are DisplayPort only, like our TBT3 UDC1, that we really recommend only for people that have DisplayPort displays because there's so much chance of trouble with the adapters. On the kind of advantages side of having dual DisplayPort, one of the things that's possible and common with DisplayPort is actually bonding or using the two separate DisplayPort outputs to connect to a single monitor that's way higher resolution. So all of our prior Thunderbolt products that had, well, all of them. So we actually did have one earlier product that has two DisplayPort outputs. It's our TBT3 DP2X graphics adapter. It's a Thunderbolt 3 to dual DisplayPort graphics adapter. And that and our UDC1 share this capability that's really on the high end. And actually, we don't honestly talk about it all that much, where there are some very high-end monitors, 5K and 8K monitors, that have two DisplayPort inputs. And when you plug it into either our adapter or our new dock, you'll actually be able to get and use those 5K or 8K displays even with the Thunderbolt 3 laptop that you have today. So chances are that any other output on your system is not going to be 8K capable. But if you buy you know, if you buy an 8K or you know, well, and you have to be careful about refresh rates, and I don't want to make any mistakes, but we might be at 30 hertz refresh rate on a standard Thunderbolt 3 laptop right now. I'd have to check the numbers, but certainly 5K, you can do full 60 hertz with those two DisplayPort outputs on pretty much any Thunderbolt 3 laptop today that supports two outputs on Thunderbolt. So so kind of that's, we don't talk about some of that stuff very much because it is so on the high end, and there's these things, well, if you've got this, this, and this, well, then you'll get this cool functionality, and it's too much for a lot of people. But if you're you're kind of a more technical user, there's some pretty awesome things that you can do. Well, I think we should go to the questions. Any interesting ones over there?
Let's see. Hi, I bought Pluggable NVMe USB-C enclosure and also followed this channel while I was looking for the product. Awesome. We love the, assuming they're talking about our USB-C NVMe hard drive enclosure. Yeah,
which is a great, so our USB-C NVMe enclosure is this, you know, NVMe is this this type of SSD flash memory that is typically what's actually inside your laptops. You know, it's a little PCB board. Let's see, maybe about this big, a little bit gumstick sized. That, you know, comes in, you know, 0.5 terabyte, terabyte, 2 terabyte versions. When you're buying a laptop, you know, with an SSD inside, chances are it's one of these NVMe SSDs that's inside. And it uses a PCI connection to connect into the laptop. And so actually this has been the case for a few years now, but there was never an easy way to connect these SSD flash drives externally, because it's an unusual hop to go from a PCI device into something that's USB and then into your laptop, but chances are your laptop only has USB. So it was basically about, well, I mean, the chip might have been developed a little bit earlier, but we came out with one of the first products to solve this problem with the USB-C NVMe that used one of the new chipsets that enables you to plug in this PCIe storage device, but actually have it show up as a drive over USB, which has a really kind of you know, great capability for plug and play mass storage devices. And you know, there was all kinds of engineering challenges with this drive. How do we make it easy to stick in these memory cards into an external drive? And we've got this great solution, you know, with a you know, kind of a spring, and then this this kind of rubberized pin that makes it very fast and easy to stick the actual memory in. And then the enclosure case is this beautiful machined aluminum case that's got this really, really nice mechanical element that you just slide the case onto it, and it snaps in, and then it's got a little rocker in the back that you can that also has a spring on it, so you can kind of resist the spring, pull the rocker over, and then slide the case out and, you know, swap out the memory. So no screws, nothing hard, nothing sharp. You know, kind of nice little switches that have spring tension on them. And the market just loves that product. I mean, it was a huge hit last spring. It's still, you know, one of our top selling products. I mean, just, you know, really nice mechanical design to that. And all these people had all these extra M.2 SSDs that had been accumulating for a few years because laptops had been using them, but there was no way to put them anywhere, or no easy way to plug them in externally. And now, finally, with the products like the USB-C NVMe, you can. And then also, because it's so ubiquitous within laptops, it's also the cheapest way to get, you know, 2 terabytes or 1 terabyte of storage. And so with our relatively inexpensive enclosure, under $50, plus that, you know, plus that relatively inexpensive memory, it's a great way to kind of quickly and easily build your own external drives that are huge. So
yeah,
I love.
Yeah, and the person who asked that, he said that he loves how he can swap them out in his PCIe boards really easily because he doesn't have to deal with the screws and the screwdriver, unscrewing them every single time you want to try something different. So people who do have a lot of different boards and drives that they want to switch in, it's so easy and fast. It's literally flip of a lever, pop it out, slide the new one in, and that's it.
Yeah.
We did this someone asked though, is the performance good enough to use as a boot drive?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Tom, for asking that question. So we have high-end drives that are Thunderbolt 3 drives. That absolutely, the question is, the answer to this question is no compromises, yes. It's our TBT3 NVMe 1 TB and 2 TB drives. Those ones are not easily or not designed to be easily taken apart. They actually ship with the media in them. And those ones will often be faster than the drives in your laptop. So they're absolutely good as boot drives. The USBC NVMe, the answer depends a little bit on your media. There probably is some low-end M.2 SSD drives out there that are slower than others. And then the drive itself is a 10 gigabit USB-C device. So practical speeds, I'm trying to remember actually what we were getting in terms of practical speeds. Over a gigabit per second of transfer speed. So what I would say is, for my typical use as a boot drive, like where I'm doing multiple operating systems, like maybe with Windows and Linux as a boot drive, I would totally be happy with it. I mean, I've used just simple USB flash drives for that all the time, and I'm happy with those. And this thing's like 10 times the performance of those things. So, I think, I think the answer is yes. But there's, going to be, some people who are discerning about the performance might want to look at some of our Thunderbolt 3 drives where you can answer unequivocally. You're never going to, you're going to be super happy with the performance. You're probably going to increase the performance of your boot drive. And Gary, who's one of our kind of leads our product owner team, was saying, yep, just basically, greater than 1 gigabit per second. Is that actually 1 gigabit or gigabyte, Gary? I don't want to make a mistake on that. I see you've got a big B there in the comment, and that's bytes typically. We'll see if I get corrected on my numbers there.
Thanks, Gary.
Oh, it's the big B. So yeah, more than 1 gigabyte per second. So more than 8 gigabits per second. So really making use the capability, as long as your M.2 SSD storage supports it. The capability to really take advantage of 10 gigabit per second. USB 3.1 Gen 2. Okay. And then a question, have we done a very similar kind of mechanical case for Thunderbolt 3? Because with Thunderbolt 3 is a 40 gigabit per second bus. USB 3.1 Gen 2 is a 10 gigabit per second bus. So basically, potentially, theoretically, 4 times the performance difference. So the question was, have we made the Thunderbolt 3 version of that product yet? And the answer is no. And the specific reason why is because Thunderbolt 3 has some really strict certification requirements. And as you're running these drives at these higher speeds, you've got really 2 issues: power, and then a very much related issue of heat. And so with Thunderbolt 3, the products have to go through a certification process. They're concerned about basically putting, that your thermals might be good with a certain low capacity, slower drive. But then if you stick in a high capacity, high performance drive, that you might, get to unsafe thermal levels and things like that. So far, as a generalization, and I think they're actually beginning to show some flexibility on this, for Thunderbolt 3 certification, they have wanted you to actually, test and get certified with installed media and not have these sort of removable enclosures. But they are they're showing some flexibility about that, and USB 4 is going to be a totally different situation in terms of certification. So I think those kind of products at higher performance are going to be coming. Okay, great. I saw a question pop up over the screen, but I didn't actually read it in time.
That was the one that you were answering.
Oh, great. Okay.
So here, I'll pop another one up there. This is a pretty good one. I have a ton of USB memory sticks and USB adapters I use, and I have to switch them out because of the limited ports. Any product recommendations?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the really wonderful things about USB is it's always been designed to have a lot of an ability to add ports and connect a lot of things. Kind of classic USB supports a topology of up to 128 devices, up to 5 deep. And all you need to do to get more ports is to plug in a USB hub. And it's really one of the kind of underappreciated amazing things about USB. And in fact, I mean, the USB standards body themselves actually has messed this up a little bit with some of the complex things with USB-C, where for data devices, all of that is still true, but as you get to video devices over USB-C, they actually don't support the hops, and they certainly don't support, like an unlimited, almost unlimited number like 128. So, yeah, so in that sort of scenario, really what I'd recommend is, for example, our USB 3 Hub 7 BC or our USB 3 Hub 7C. Actually, I recommend the USB 3 Hub 7C, and let me tell you why. So that product is just simply one cable back to your computer and then 7 free downstream USB ports. And USB is designed to support exactly that. And all it takes, in this case, is 2 hub controllers that are sitting inside that hub. Each one basically has 4, 1 upstream port and 4 downstream ports. I need to raise my hands up to show it. And yeah, and so then we've got 2 of them inside, that 7-port hub. And the thing about the USB 3 Hub 7 BC is we have both C and A hosts are supported off of that hub. We include both cables in the box. So regardless of whether you've got Mac or Windows, regardless of whether you've got a USB-C or a USB-A laptop, if you buy the pluggable USB 3 Hub 7C, you'll be able to connect that into your laptop and connect any number of devices like the memory sticks that we're asked about. Now, it's important to know, though, if you're doing USB-C, that none of the special USB-C features will work on that hub. So anything that involves a USB-C DisplayPort over USB-C display adapter, anything that involves Thunderbolt 3, and anything that involves laptop charging, all of those are kind of advanced USB-C features. And when you have a product like that that supports either USB-A or C, those products are always going to be kind of limited to the USB-A feature set. So data devices will work. I mean, there are some graphics adapters that will work too, which is kind of confusing. Anything based on DisplayLink technology can run on USB devices and laptops even from 10 years ago. And we sell a lot of those kind of adapters. Those will work, and you can plug in several of them. So yeah, so that's what I'd recommend. That's kind of the best way to do it. And isn't that nice? Now, finally, you can just leave all of your different drives plugged in all the time, rather than having to swap them in and swap them out. I mean, if you're a graphic designer, what a pain, and actually a great way to lose your drives if you're constantly swapping them in and out. It's better to just kind of keep them all plugged in, and just simply buying a USB hub, which is easily less than $50, solves that problem.
Yeah, I feel like hubs and docks, like, you don't realize the amount of ports you need until you have it. Like, I immediately filled up all the ports on my my TBT3 UVZ dock, all of my USB ports. I was like, I have an extra one, now I can do this. And so, especially with the USB-C Hub 7 BC, like, it's 10 ports, I'm pretty sure 7 ports, and it may sound like a lot, but I think people will quickly use them up with those kinds of memory sticks and other things that they need to connect, Bluetooth adapters, those kinds of things.
Yeah, USB hubs almost always come because the way the USB spec is designed, the hub controller that makes sense is a 4-port controller. And so, the common kind of number of ports that you'll see is basically 4 or 7 or 10 or 13. So wait, so why did we go from 4 to 7? Well, the reason why is because you've got a controller, try to get it on screen again, that has 4 downstream. Well, one of them gets taken up by the next downstream controller. That's the input into the next one. So you're only gaining 3 ports each time, which is why you go from 4 to 7 to 10. And Pluggable actually sells 10-port hubs, our USB 3 Hub 10 C2, which is actually kind of what I have on my desk right behind me right now.
When are we going to get to 13?
Oh, 13, unlucky number. We'll skip that one.
Yeah.
Great. Do we have any more questions?
Through, there was one comment I made a little while ago, and this will be jumping back to something that we talked about. It was about active versus passive. Here we go. Is there a way to tell the difference between active and passive adapters from the product design or what's actually printed on the product?
That's a great question, and unfortunately, the answer is essentially no. You almost need to just know, like, for example, if the pluggable DP HDMI, it's active, it says it's active, so if I buy that, I just don't need to worry. That's actually about the only way to do it. I mean, even on ours, and we try to be, pretty fastidious about things. I mean, we'll put a URL on every one of our products. Is that oriented the right way? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that, and this is common on pluggable products. So these are two different products I'm showing, the active and the passive adapter. You can see both of them have an actual link that you can put into a web browser to double check what does this thing really do and not do and what's it compatible with. Our mission at Pluggable is better products, better information, better support, and having that URL on every product so that you can look it up. And in fact, some of our newer products, it's in addition to the URL, there's a QR code to make it easy to look up the product. It's always easy. You find this, laying around in some box in your house, which is the problem I always have. You're like, what in the world is this? What does it do? Well, you can just stick in the URL and get a whole page worth of information about the product and know exactly what it does. If you need any software support for it or need to know how to contact us, all of that is there. So we make that really easy. You will never kind of be confused by a pluggable product because we put the information right there.
Put it on the package, we put it on the quick start guide, we put it on the product. We want to make it as easy as possible to figure out exactly what it's capable of, because there's nothing worse than plugging something in and seeing black and not knowing what the heck happened.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then when we have many cables that we sell that are just cables, for example, Thunderbolt 3 cables. What do we do on those where there really isn't an adapter? It's just a cable. What do we do on those products?
We're typically, we're just putting our logo on there, but then it's usually coming in some sort of like poly bag or something like that. We have, and our tags. Yeah,
we put tags on all of those. So not only do we tell you exactly what the specs of the cable are, but again, we give that nice link so that you can look it up anytime. So same thing. It's kind of what I want. I hate grabbing a cable and not knowing, oh man, is this going to work? Is this a old thing, new thing? Yeah. So you'll never be confused about a pluggable product. Yeah. Somebody said the attention to detail. Yes, exactly. We're trying. We have a high attention to detail, and part of the reason why is because again, we have this all US-based support models, and we make it easy to contact us. So if we make a mistake on the kind of better information part of our mission, well, we're here with also the better support, the US-based support, but that costs us money. So we want to get it right. We want to make it easy for you so you don't have to contact us. And so there's a nice kind of beneficial cycle there that we're motivated to try to really be proactive about solving these products with better information or better products and better information. But we're there to back it up with the better support. If we have a gap or we mess it up.
Yeah, or sometimes it's just confusing and you just need to ask and figure out, am I doing the right thing? Am I buying the right product? Rather than purchasing it, waiting for it to come, trying it and it not working. It's just easier to reach out and find out.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you so much. This is a great new format. And thank you so much, Katie, for joining us from New York City.
Oh, yeah.
For this.
Almost
and really appreciate all the interaction on the comments. This is our first time where we have been this half hour right now been broadcasting both on YouTube Live and on Facebook. So thank you also to Paul behind the scenes on our side who helped get StreamYard set up so that we could stream to both of those channels simultaneously. So look forward to seeing everybody again next week. And if you have any questions at all, you just ask it on the chats of the videos. Either they'll hang around, as will the videos themselves, or just email support@pluggable.com, or check out support.pluggable.com. And we've got this kind of great community forum that we do not leave to the community. We actually are deeply engaged there, answering questions, really helping people. Great source of information about our products in particular, but also just USB products in general. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jehu, for being here. And totally by accident, we like that.
Yeah, that's the best. And then, I mean, people, because this will live on our social channels afterwards. So if you comment on our YouTube video, or you comment on the Facebook video, our support team sees that and will answer it. It's not some social media specialist. We have some really knowledgeable experts who will answer our social media questions. So feel free to just drop a comment below, and we'll be there to help.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Katie.
Bye. Have a good night.
See you next week.